Good afternoon. Hope everybody had a enjoyable lunch. We are going to have 4 presenters, 4 companies presenting here this afternoon. And with each presenters, after the presentations, the presenters will take questions across the hall in room 611. And you are the presenters here are very fortunate because this is the only panel that is being actually live streamed. So please speak to the mic and from time to time look at the camera. Our first company today, my name is Eva Orlowska. I'm with the Polish-American Chamber of Commerce. And our first company today is Obenomics. Presenting for Obenomics is the president, Yansung Gu.
Hi, good afternoon. So my name is Yansung Gu. I'm the founder of Obenomics. So Obenomics means the obesity and economics. That's from economics point of view. But for the scientists, it can be interpreted as obesity and omics. So today I'm going to just give you 3 part of my talk will contain 3 parts. The first part just give you the overview of the company, and the second is give you an overview of the landscape of the obesity, especially for treatment and solutions. And the last part will be the science part, that what's the progress Obenomics has been made in the last couple of years. So here's the fact sheet for my company. The company's goal is to develop drugs that target fat cells and are safe for treating obesity, diabetes, and breast cancers. So we think we have very clear goals and very unique and innovative solutions. So in the last couple of years, we have been entering a licensing agreement with the University of Washington on the mouse models and related mouse model and epigenetic target for drug development. And these intellectual property was initially developed in my laboratory when I was assistant professor of immunology and radiation oncology at the University of Washington. So since then, I'm devoted to commercialize these technologies for University of Washington. So far we have been focused on identify drug candidate, and here are the things that we've been doing. So first we are focusing on in silico models of drug discovery, and the second project we have been doing for the last years, actually we have a lab in the Fremont. We're focusing on develop a human mesenchymal stem cell based assays. Basically, we envision that in the future there will be requirement for differentiate the individual response to the drug that we are developed. And so in order to increase the efficacy and make sure the drug safety, we think it's necessary at the very early stage we develop these technologies to validate our drug, because our goal is develop a safe and effective drug. So the bottom line of our company business is, of course, the synthesis of novel small molecule, and from there we can identify drug candidate, and we have been making significant progress. So as a startup company, we understand that our job is to protect and build our portfolio, IP portfolio, and protect our technology. And we are very interested. We've been doing this, and we are also interested in other company individual who has solution that's similar to us, that we would be very, very happy to collaborate or doing the tech transfers. So the company has get lots of support from individual and institutes. Here are the list of several people Mike Jensen is a professor at the Mayo Clinic, and he served as chairman of NIH study section on obesity and metabolic syndromes. And Ferdal is from Harvard Medical School. Mark Godin is well-known locally, internationally as well. He's served as an associate director at the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Institute. And Perry Fell is the co-founder of Seattle Genetics. Todd Patrick gave a talk yesterday, and they both gave me a very valuable business advice. David Chen is an IT person and very successful. He's in California. And there's another person, Dr. Ho and Chris Porter and Richard Stead, that helped me on various issues that are core of the company development. So now let's look at the obesity economics. So we all know obesity is a big problem. I don't need to emphasize that. This slide is just give you a summarize in terms of remind you that the nearly 80 million of population in the United States are now officially considered as obese because their BMI is over 30. And why is this such an important problem? Because obesity will lead to health consequences and a variety of comorbidity factors, namely different kinds of disease, such as metabolic syndromes, a body of syndromes, right? And heart disease, degenerative disease, and cancers. And economic consequence is huge. These are the government numbers regarding how much money that as a society that has to spend on these problems. And lots of companies, almost all the major companies, are involved in the drug development or providing solution one way or the others. So I'm gonna later mention a couple companies gain lots of attention in the last, even this week, next week. So namely is Arena and Vivas. So obesity will lead to metabolic syndrome, but not necessarily is in a linear fashion. Overweight ultimately increase the risk of develop a variety of condition and disease, but those diseases may bypass the overweight and obesity stage, and this is totally depend on the genders, depend on the geographic difference, and reflecting cultures and individual behaviors. But nonetheless, we all know from a physician point of view that overweight is really leads to is the beginning of the health problem, and then eventually will spiral and getting worse and worse and complicate, such that the physician can only treating one condition but not necessarily the other. So reduced body weight is a very important preventive stage. So over the years, company has developed drugs, and those drugs failed, and FDA become very cautious about the new drugs that are in the pipelines. So far we know there's two and a half drugs on the market. The reason is that 2 drugs is being approved by FDA, and then the last drug will be approved next week by FDA. But if you look at these drugs, you know there's problems. First of all, FDA is clearly pay more attention on the safety side than the efficacy. So even for example, the new drug, the Bilvix by Arena Pharmaceutical, they actually do not reach the FDA guideline in terms of average weight loss, which is 5%. They only patients that are taking the drug only can lose about 3 to 3.7%. And only less than, this is the first time, less than half of the patient population lose 5%. Okay, so the drug is really not very effective or very mild effective. And you see the placebo effect is already 23%. But because the drug seems to relatively safe, so it got finally get approval from FDA, although the company is undergo roller coaster because FDA panels decline the recommendation and then change the panel and then eventually got it recommended. So the next drug is a different story. It's a combination of two known drug, and including one of the components of previously failed drug, fenfens. But this drug seems to be more effective as compared to the previous one. So it is possible that this drug will get approved. Now go back to the first drug that are already on the market and as an over-counter available ally. So those that who take this drug complains a lot because it's really make the life quite miserable. And instead, the advice from a company is that the whoever takes the drug should undergo very, very restricted diet. But think about it. If you have a patient that undergo restrict diet, why they need your drug, right? Okay, so I'm going to skip all of these discussion. Now we move on to science part. So here's the our current understanding about the biology of obesity. So, it's a little bit go back to the previous drug development. The controversy in the drug development field about developing obesity drug is that whether we should develop drug that target brain, that suppress people's desires for food, or we should target on the energy storage. So the three drugs that I listed before, the two new drugs are both target brain. Target brain is targeting human desire for food and is the same place for desire for pleasure, for happiness. So think about it. The side effect is very clear. If the drug is effective, a person probably is not surprised, will become very depressed, and then the mood swings will be very clear. So that's the chief side effect. Now look at this picture. You can see we know that for each, whether it's a food intake or energy expenditure, there's both positive and negative regulation. And as a result, it will go down to the energy homeostasis, and that will determine the body, how the body stores the cell, the energy. And the fat tissue will then send a signal, whether it's positive and negative, to tell the person to determine whether they're going to eat or exercise. So we see the opportunity here. Instead of targeting the complex, the so-called central target, we target a peripheral target, simply fat, and we are taking a complete different approach as everyone or anyone has ever done before. We use epigenetic approach. The reason is that we think the rationale behind my idea is that the epigenetic components, the enzymes, they are the same enzyme that its activity is regulated by diet itself. Diet means not the way we eat. Metabolized is the vitamins. These are small molecules. Those are the molecules that affecting and regulating lots of enzymes. And in return, these enzymes controls and affecting their downstream gene, and the expression of these genes determine the overall function of the fat storage and the fat mass, and that will normally will leads to a normal body weight, and then otherwise will increase the body weight, and then leads to the obesity. Now the other concept here is that the overweight or fat storage is what we give it the label for the body response to the fat storage. But in reality, this is the survival as an animal. It is the survival mechanism. So they are not considered, should be considered as a disease, at least at the beginning. They are the normal function of the body. So it is how the lifestyle that the individual choose and the overall diet determine how the fat tissue is gonna function. So make long story short, so we're looking for the target, which is epigenetic target. Here we find is the SIRT1 gene or an enzyme called SIRT1 deacetylase. And it is NAD-dependent deacetylase. NAD is the one component of a nutrient or diet. So that perfect fits the model that I would just proposed. So normally, the level of NAD regulates the enzyme activity. And here we find, for example, a molecule that can inhibit the SIRT1 enzymatic activity. So that will change the expression of the downstream of the SIRT1. So we did the experiment by using a very sophisticated technology called conditional knockout, meaning that we can remove the gene that the part of the gene that called exon 4 that codes for this target that interact with the inhibitor or interact with the NAD otherwise in a normal situation. So that will mimic the loss ability to sensing the diet or NAD, or in the form of inhibition through inhibitor. So by removing these few amino acids, and we end up with a cell that express a mutant protein because they lost several amino acids, and these proteins only occur in the fat cells, in the adipocyte, white adipocyte. So that's a long story. This takes years to build up this technology. Nonetheless, I'm going to tell you the result. So the result is very, very surprising. Even though there's just only a pocket of amino acid being removed, what you can see in the second is that after the whole genome microarray analysis, we find that in the white adipose tissue isolated from mice that is 2 months old, there's 304 genes are affected, whereas in the white adipose tissue isolated from mice that is 16 months of age, the 58 genes are affected, and there's only 5 of them are overlap. So this really shows that the SIRT1 enzyme is required at a different time of the lifespan and play a very important function. And what's more important is that we identify that 58 downstream gene that is controlled by one single enzyme. So they are the good target. So the bottom line is, what is the consequence? The consequence, as we do in this experiment, is that when the mice is treated with a different diet, either at the 5% fat diet or slightly increased 9% fat diet, as you can see that over the time, the mice has in the 5% diet, there's not much of a difference, whereas when the fat content is increased to 9%, which is a very moderate increase, and this diet is normally given to female mice when they nurse their babies. So at the beginning, we don't see much a difference between the circle and the field of the lines, which is a wild type. But by 8 months of age, there's a divergence. The wild type mice continue to gain weight as we expected because there's an increase of fat content in the diet, whereas the mice that are missing that exon 4 have maintained their body weight. So this is a very important discovery. Very important because this is the point that we usually miss. Because in human, we know that the sexual maturity is occurred around age of 13 years, whereas human body still grow until 20 or 25 years of age, and we are no longer grow horizontally, and then we start gaining weight. No longer grow vertically, but we are growing horizontally. So for scientists, they use animal as the models. They always use sexual maturity as a maturity. But here we find another important point that mimics human physiology, which is at the correspond to 20 years of age of a human lifespan. Why is it so important? Because we know that as humans grow, for example, or as we born, the cell of a heart is never increased. However, the number of the muscle cell in our heart, that's the same number of cells that person died. They are never renewed or never doing anything. But for the fat cell, they continue to grow. They grow until 20 years of age. And by that time, they stop. The number no longer increase. So that's the underlying critical message. And we find here, because the gene only missing in the fat cell, but not in other part of body. And this is a very important discovery to show that this epigenetic mechanism really controls the human body growth. So if we can, the SIRT1 normally is for survival. As I pointed out, gaining weight is the normal function for survival, and SIRT1 is doing the mediate this function is for survival. So everything seems to be work. So we did more experiment, because the previous experiment is over time of more than 2 years. So now we're looking at the sections, looking at the 36-hour life of these mice, and looking for the energy in and energy out, and how do they balance. So these mice are being live in a cage so that their oxygen and carbon dioxide is a complete measure, their food and water is a complete measure, and everything is measured. And this is, I just give you a summary result and just take a peek of a result. And these results show, as you see, the left top panel shows that these mice, whether it's a wild type, which is a blue, and the mutant mice, which is red, breathe in the same amount of oxygen, but they clearly show there's an elevated resting metabolic rate, okay, at the second panel. So, and yet they are taking the same amount of food. So this is very exciting, the discovery in terms of an underlying mechanism. So I'm very much gonna stop soon. Here is the list of reference and patents and mouse model that are available for anybody that are interested in this topic. And overall, so companies develop small molecule drug that recapitulate this epigenetic regulation of fat storage. And we have a platform technology to assess safety and efficacy. And our goal is to develop weight management solution that for benefit for post bariatric, the surgery patient, who are about 200,000 people now. And the second population is drug-induced weight gain population, especially type 2 diabetes patients. And finally, we hope that eventually it can reach to mass market for safety and effectiveness for long-term use. Thank you very much.
And I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Kelly Altum, CEO of Meta Next Inc. And following the presentations, Mr. Altum will take questions across the hall in room 611.
Good afternoon. My name is Kelly Altum, and last year we attended this event in the speed dating. And I'm really happy to be here 1 year later to talk with you about MetaNext. Our office is in Redmond, Washington. And one day our neighbor in the building stopped into the office and says, "So what do you guys do?" So I pulled out our tablet and it's an Android tablet, and showed him a prototype of our application. And he said, you know, it's about freaking time somebody did that. And that's a sentiment we hear a lot, and I hope you feel the same way after we're done. So Obenomics is focused on helping hospitals and patients manage the transition from home to hospital and hospital to home. We're developing 3 products, and these products are designed to improve outcomes and lower costs. To achieve our goals, we are here to raise some money. We have some angel investment already, and we're using that money to finish the development of our product, and we are going to pilot our product at Providence Regional Medical Center in Everett. And if you're not familiar with Providence, they are the 10th largest hospital system in America. So the opportunity, the problem we're trying to solve is around hospital readmissions, patient non-adherence, and the costs that are associated with that with Medicare. So patient non-adherence in particular, this is a recent study from Vanderbilt University that has half of heart patients within a critical 30-day period after they leave the hospital make a mistake with their drugs. And a quarter of that 50% are serious life-threatening mistakes. So as you can see, it is a critical problem that needs to be solved. Now, because the Supreme Court has finally approved the Accountable Care Act, Medicare and Medicaid in FY13, which starts in October, will begin the ability to fine hospitals who have excessive readmissions. That fine is significant. The first year it's 1% of their total Medicare payments, 2% in the next year, 3% in the following year. Now they also have the ability to refuse to pay for the readmission. And we've talked to a lot of hospitals and a lot of insurance companies, and they all plan that insurance companies, private insurance companies, will follow the lead of Medicare and stop paying for readmissions. So what we're creating is a cloud-based system, and we're trying to close the loop between primary care, the home, the hospital, and the specialists. This is a transitional service, and what I mean by transition is to help the patient and the hospital manage the transition when a patient goes from primary care, then they go to the hospital, to the specialist, then they go back home again. We're the only service out there that will tie those 3 groups together into one service. And we're using mobile technology on cell phones, on tablets, and I'm going to show you the tablet application prototype we have, and through the web through a traditional PC. So Medisync is the name of the product that, at the core of the Medisync product is a health path. A health path is a roadmap for the patient to follow. A health path is created using our service by a type of a new role inside of a hospital, which is an adherence coach. And the adherence coach configures a health path based on the prescription that is given to them by the physician. So a physician prescribes the health path, an adherence coach configures the health path for that particular patient. Now, virtually everyone we have talked to has some story to tell us about their experience in a hospital. Now, one of the team members that we have is his wife is pregnant, and she has a form of diabetes that is associated with her pregnancy. And he's working on the Health Path product right now. Every day he thinks to himself, why don't I have this right now to help my wife manage her pregnancy and her diabetes at the same time? Because the number of tasks she has to complete every day is quite a large number of tasks. So when we talk to people about this, they all get it. So many people we talk to have had the experience of leaving the hospital, they're on drugs, they get a plastic bag with a bunch of pieces of paper in them. Oftentimes that paper has a bunch of written notes on it, and they get home and they look at each other and they say, so what did that nurse tell us to do? And that's one of the reasons why we are creating the health path. So if you take a typical scenario, let's take an ACL surgery scenario. What we create are templates. And these templates lay out everything that the patient needs to do before the surgery and after the surgery. So the templates are created by us, but then a hospital can come in and take our template and modify it and save it as their own template. And we will also have a service that allows hospitals to share templates with each other. So the adherence coach comes in, names the health path, and picks the template. All the things necessary for this particular ACL health path are populated by our service. So you have events like appointments and the day of the surgery. You have education activities, like we need you to watch this video before the surgery so you know what's going to happen to you. And then we have tasks, and the tasks are things that the patient has to do. The items in red are the items that need to be configured by the adherence coach. So they know immediately what they have to do to get this health path ready for this particular patient. One of the things they need to do is they need to modify a task about the antibiotic that the patient needs to take. So they have the type of task is medication. They name it, take an antibiotic, and they say the start time, 8 a.m. in the morning, and the frequency, how often do they need to take this. Now, this system is all very good for the patient. It helps them a lot. But one of the great strengths of this system is that the adherence coach in the hospital has a dashboard. And that dashboard lists all the active health paths and gives each one of them a status, red, yellow, green. So an adherence coach looking in the hospital can at a glance see the screen, see that everything is green, no worries. Now right here where you say number of failures until caution, that is configurable by the adherence coach to say if this patient misses this task, does not say they completed it once, turn the status to yellow. If the number of failures until intervention, they set that at 3. So if there's patient misses this 3 times, the health path will turn red, and at that point it is time for the adherence coach to intervene with that particular patient. We want them to give them the ability to intervene early, because an early intervention means that patient doesn't end up in the emergency room, and they don't end up having a readmission and the associated cost with that. So then the patient picks the drug that they need to take, see a picture of it there, and they put the prescription in there as written by the physician. So now, what does it look like from the patient side of things? So before the patient leaves the hospital, the adherence coach sits down with them and gets them registered with the service. And in many cases, hospitals, and this is the case with Providence, for some of their patients, they're going to give them a tablet computer to take home with them. So in case they don't have it. The tablet computer is hooked up to the cell phone network. So when they come home, they start up the tablet, plug it in, if they want to keep it plugged in, put in their PIN number, which will most likely be the last 4 digits of the phone number. Now, I have this, the prototype if you want to see it afterwards. I just didn't have any way to hook it up to the display here. So the first thing they see is for this particular day, they have 3 things that they need to do. First one is to take the amoxicillin, then there's the exercise and enter the level of pain that they're feeling. Now the instructions for the particular drug are there, and the picture of the one they're supposed to take. Then they also have all of the instructions or all the information about that particular drug, all the side effects, all the drug interactions that they have. And then 20 minutes before they have to actually do a task, they get this pop-up. And this pop-up is telling them, in 13 minutes, you need to do this. And at this point, the patient has the option to say, I have a question about this particular drug. Maybe this drug is causing them some difficulty in some way. So they can send a message to the adherence coach and say, this is really giving me a lot of problems. Can I get a different type of antibiotic? Or they can just say, I have completed this. Once they say I've completed it, the adherence coach, the system that the adherence coach uses knows that they completed it, and there's a complete history of everything that the patient has done if the patient wants to look at it. There's also a complete history that the adherence coach can look at when they want to. So the other type of thing is a task about doing an exercise. And the tab up on the right there has video. So in case the patient needs to see a video about how to do an exercise, that's there. This could also be a task that says, I need to change a dressing. Here's a video on how to change a dressing. Anything that the hospital wants them to have instructions on. Now, we want to have a support network for these patients, so we have 3 groups of people who are going to support the patient once they leave the hospital. The first group is the care team. And the care team is the adherence coach, any physicians, any family caregivers that are actually caregivers with the patient are all listed in here, and they can have messages sent to them. The eventual experience will be similar to, if you're familiar with Facebook or LinkedIn, it will be similar to the kind of rolling messages that come in Facebook on the wall or inside of LinkedIn. So the patients are posting messages to a particular person, that person's replying, and everybody can see them who has access to the care team. We also have the friends and family. And the friends and family are only the people that the patient has decided to add. These are people that care about the patient and they want to know what's going on with this particular issue, in this case a knee surgery, it could be a heart surgery. And they can share messages back and forth in the same way. And the final group is a social support network. What this is this is the group of people who have been prescribed by a doctor the same type of health path. So you might have, and this would not be just within Providence, this would be across the entire country. So you would have a group of people who are experiencing the exact same thing that you're experiencing. So nobody in here nobody in this support network would not understand what you're going through, because they are going through the exact same thing. A very important thing that we feel that will make people be able to answer questions from other people who are going through the same thing that they're going through. And then they go back to the daily view that they have. There's also a journal, a daily medical journal that they can enter anything in that they want to enter into it. So if you want to see the real thing, come up afterwards and I'll show you the tablet. So the second product we have is called Doctor Discovery. So 25 million, and this was in 2004, 25 million consumers made a physician selection during that year. With the Affordable Care Act, that number is going to be much, much bigger. And what the situation is today, every hospital system in the country has a Find a Doctor option on their website. You get very few options during that Find a Doctor, and you end up with an alphabetized list of doctors. If you go to look at primary care physicians at any of the major hospitals in the Seattle area, you're going to get a list alphabetized of possibly 600 physicians. And how you're supposed to decide which of those 600 in alphabetical order is the one that you need to pick that's best for you is hard for anybody to do. So there's a thing called the Patient Practitioner Orientation Scale. It was designed for third-year medical students to give them an idea how patient-centered their thinking is. We utilized that, and that has been utilized in several studies, and these studies were all shown that the patient had a better experience, they had a higher level of trust, and that they had a higher level of follow-through with what their physician told them to do when they were matched based on the Patient Practitioner Orientation Scale. So what we do is doctors and patients fill out our profile. It's very brief, just about 25 questions. And then they get a list of the doctors. It is the same list they would have gotten before. It's just prioritized and personalized to them the way they view medicine. And this system is up and running today, and we have it in beta with a few organizations. So the third product we have is Metanex Analytics. This is when we take all of the information that we gather from Metasync and Doctor Discovery, we aggregate it all following the rules of aggregation so that nothing can be, no personal identifiable information can be extracted from it. And we take this data and we give it back to the hospital in the form of reports that they can query any way they want to query. And then if the hospital decides that they want to get information outside of their own organization, they want to see what the national information looks like, they can go ahead and pay more and then get the national information that is aggregated from hospitals throughout our entire service. So from a differentiation standpoint, our content is probably the most important thing. We are creating templates for many major medical conditions and surgical procedures. And we're having these reviewed by doctors, experts in the particular area, so we'll find cardiologists to review the health paths for cardiologists. And we're creating applications that will run on cell phones, run on tablets, and will be basic web pages as well. So people can access it however it works best for them to access it. We're also taking a particular emphasis on making sure that this works for elderly, because Medicare patients are a lot of the patient population, so we want to make sure, I tell our developers over and over again that you have to make this work for a 65 to 70-year-old who's never used a computer before. So we're trying really hard to make sure all these applications are very simple to use. Now, one of the things that has been very interesting for us when we go and talk to hospitals is the concept of bundling. A lot of the large manufacturers, they asked us not to say who these are, but they're large manufacturers in the Seattle area, and they make things that fly. And they have come to these hospitals and say, look, we have a lot of operations for total knee replacements. We have a lot of operations for hernias is one of the ones they have a lot of as well. And we want a bundle that says, these are all the things that the hospital is going to do for this patient before they arrive at the hospital, while they're there, and after they leave. What the hospitals really like is health path also defines what the patient is responsible for. So as the patient goes through their health path, if they don't do the things that are defined for them in the health path, then the hospital doesn't necessarily have to pay the bundle price because there was a two-way agreement about this particular bundle. So our revenue model is a subscription model, yearly subscription. It's $600 per provider per year. This is a very reasonable price if you ever looked at the pricing for EMR systems. A lot of the EMR systems are $600 per provider per month. We're $600 per year per provider. And our setup is, there's no setup fee. It's a very easy thing for a hospital to do because they don't have any capital expenditures on their part. They don't need to have a data center. All they need to do is sign up for the service and begin using it. We will make the site that they access and that their patients access branded to their hospital. So when we do Providence, the patients are not going to know that they're not on a Providence website. We'll have a little thing in the lower right-hand corner that says powered by Metanex. Other than that, the patient has no idea they left the Metanex site, the Providence site, and they're off on our service. We're also going to work with a lot of the EMR vendors to integrate this information because, sure as you can understand, the information that you can put in tasks like check your blood pressure, what's your blood sugar level, all those type of tasks, that information would be best if it flowed back into the EMR system so that it becomes a permanent part of their record. So we'll be integrating with EMR systems to make sure that that flow happens. Initially, we'll be standalone from them. So as I said, Providence is our first customer. We're working with them to pilot it probably within about 6 months. We're going to be in a full pilot with them. We'll have a beta before that. And we're working with a lot of other clinics in the area, a lot of other organizations. Q Alliance, we met with them recently. And we have a partnership with Verizon for the tablets. So they're going to make it possible for us to strip everything off of the tablets other than what is necessary for that patient. That will allow us to apply for what is called DME, durable medical equipment. And if we can get the certification of durable medical equipment, then Medicare will accept that and the hospital can bill for it. So the financials. This number looks like it might be a little large for that number of people to deal with, but in reality, that number of 9 represents 9 hospitals, which could be all in a single organization. So Providence has 35 hospitals in the West Coast, so that could all be Providence hospitals. So it's not that difficult. If there was 9 separate customers from separate organizations that 16 people had to deal with, that would be a little bit difficult. We don't anticipate that. So our management team, I've been in the software business for about 20 years. It's my third startup. We have a great team of people. 2 of them are here today, Megan and Teresa. Some great developers. A lot of experience across the whole team. And our board of advisors has been extremely helpful in finding people that, the right people to talk to, and also guiding us in our decision-making process. David Jaffe, some of you may know him, former CEO of Harborview, currently CEO at Swedish. Rhoda Carlson, board member at Seattle Children's Hospital for 14 years. Pat Hagen, and Chris Samoji, a very well-known entrepreneur in this area in healthcare. And Tom, I think everybody knows Tom, so he's been very helpful in advising us. And that is what MetaNext is creating. We are very excited to be talking with you about it, and I'd love to answer any questions that you have. Did I get that done and right on time? Perfect. Thank you.